Welcome to the Steering Change Podcast, navigating through the commercial transportation industry in Alberta and beyond. Powered by the Alberta Motor Transport Association. Here's your host, Kelsey Hipkin.
Hello, listeners of Steering Change. Today we're going to talk wheels, or wheel-offs to be precise. A wheel-off occurs when a truck or trailer loses a wheel or even a complete set of dual wheels. There are several causes, with one of the most common being over-torqued wheel studs. Over-torquing causes the studs to stretch, which reduces the nut's clamping force and leads to the wheel loosening. Once the wheel begins to wobble, the studs shear off and the wheel set becomes a torpedo, wreaking havoc in its path. There are claims the United States alone sees 1,000 wheel-offs in a year. In Canada, the Ontario government passed an absolute liability law in 1997 holding carriers responsible even if due diligence can be demonstrated. Both carriers and drivers in the province can be held liable with fines ranging from $2,000 to $50,000. An article posted by Isaac Instruments stated that after the absolute liability law was passed, there was a decrease in incidents of 54%, or a drop of 215 to 99 incidents between 1997 and 1998. Fast forward to 2013, and incidents increased to 147, then 127 in 2019. Isaac does attribute these increased numbers partly to more trucks on the road and changes in reporting methods. While Alberta-specific stats are hard to come by, these incidents can cause serious injury or fatalities. If a listener out there has some numbers and the knowledge, we would love to hear from you. For this particular podcast, however, we're going to go off the personal experience of our guests and their knowledge. We've put together a pretty in-depth episode for you today, including 3 segments. We're going to talk to Geoff Wiebe, National Account Manager for Kal Tire. We'll have AMTA's Doug Walton live on location with Answer Trailer Rentals and Sales. And then we'll wrap with a chat with Evan Schielke, Regional Sales Manager, Alberta and Northern BC with STEMCO. To kick things off, here's our chat with Geoff from Kal Tire. For this segment, we're joined by Geoff Wiebe, National Account Manager for Kal Tire. Geoff traveled from Regina to join us in studio today. Geoff, thank you for coming.
Great to be here.
We're also joined by a regular on the show, Doug Walton, AMTA Senior Advisor at Member Solutions. Doug, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me, Kelsey.
For those of you joining us via our YouTube channel, we would like to thank our friends at Kal Tire for providing the footage that you will see during this segment. Geoff, to start, let's do a quick get to know you. Tell me a bit about the work you do.
So I am a National Account Manager on our sales team with Kal Tire. I'm based in Regina, and I look after some of the larger national accounts. So generally in our world, a national account is 100 plus units operating in multiple provinces. And I have a list of those customers that I look after for Kal Tire.
Wonderful. Thank you for making the trip, and thank you for joining us.
Great to be here.
Okay, let's talk tires. Geoff, I'm going to start not with wheel-offs, but retreads, since we're in the tire world. And then we'll let Doug and his commercial driving expertise take a deeper dive into wheel-offs. So people may be used to seeing pieces of tire tread on the roadways. I recently learned that these are known as alligator skins, and depending on where they fall, can be dangerous to the general public or other commercial vehicles. What are some common factors for tire blowouts or alligator skins on the highway?
So the most common reason for that is generally it's heat. Okay, heat is the enemy of tires. The way to deal with that is to make sure that the tire has the correct inflation, avoid road hazards where their rapid deflation happens, where you get a puncture or something like that. But generally what happens is the heat will break down the tire very, very fast when it's operating at a high rate, and then it comes apart, and it generally comes apart in a similar way, right? Even a passenger tire or a truck tire, and then that flat portion of the tread will eject off what we call the casing. The casing is kind of the entire tire unit, not including the tread. Mm-hmm. But then the way the tire fails at a high rate of speed, that casing, that big flat portion of tread will eject off the tire, goes into a bunch of pieces, and you see that on the side of the road. Mm-hmm. So there are ways to prevent that and minimize it, but that is generally when a tire fails, that's what you see.
And we're here talking retreads. Is that common in industry?
So it's a common myth. Retreads is the process of applying new tread to a tire that's had tread wear down.
Okay.
So not typically tread that's been ejected off or failed. When we talk retreads, we always talk about a couple different components. We talk a lot about the casing, which is the part of the tire that's reused essentially in the retread process. And then the tread is what is fixed and bonded to that casing. Studies have shown that, and there's been some studies where people have actually done an analysis of all those pieces of rubber on the side of the road. The vast majority of those pieces of rubber are due to the actual casing failing and not the tread or the retread being ejected off the tire.
Okay.
So that is one of the myths. You see that section of tread on the side of the road, and a lot of people immediately think, well, that's a retreaded tire and the tread came off. That's almost never the case. It's extremely rare that happens. Usually what you're seeing is the casing itself that's failed and come apart. And it looks the same as the tread, but it's generally the casing that's failed. And that's been proven. Like that's a fact that studies have shown. So
well, and that's good to hear. Like when I commute to work for an hour and I do see the pieces often, and now I know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the casing.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, Geoff, I am going to pass you off to Doug. Doug is going to take some deep dives into wheel-offs from his experience as a Class 1 driver and in industry. So, Doug, take it away.
Thanks, Kelsey. Hey, Geoff. Great to be here with you.
Yeah.
And thanks again for joining us. I know we talked a little bit about blowouts, but I know there's more concerns that the drivers face when it comes to wheels when they're on the road, and that's wheel offs. So I'm going to shift, I guess, that focus to that a little bit. And I've never experienced a wheel off during my driving career, but I've seen through over the years, the devastating results of when it does occur. So we're just, obviously we're trying to raise awareness to this, and I guess bring the attention to like the tire techs that are doing the work, out in the field or in the shop. Is there anything, that you've come across in your time in the tire industry that you could say, there's been a common or something that, something that's gone wrong that's led to a wheel off as a result of some of the tire work that's being done?
Yeah. At Kal Tire, obviously we work on hundreds, if not thousands of wheel positions on a daily basis. So wheel off is one of those unfun things that we do deal with on occasion. And the answer is yes. There are things to look for, and things that we can do specifically to prevent those issues. What we do, generally speaking, and how we train our folks is we follow sort of a tire industry association policy called RIST. It's RIST. So that stands for remove debris. So one of the causes of wheels, especially dual mated wheels, which is there's many of them in the medium truck world, the dual mated wheels will get some dirt or dust either between the two wheels or between the wheel and the hub face. And that's going to prevent the lug nuts from being torqued to proper tightness. It might not be straight or true. And then that debris can work that wheel loose over time on the road. So that's one of the things that we've seen cause the wheel to come loose and to eject off the hub. So yeah, the R in that RIST procedure is remove foreign material and debris. So we do a really good inspection when we're working on that hub. If necessary, we'll buff with a wire wheel both the hub face and the hub face of the wheel, the mating surface as they call it, just to make sure that that's cleaned off. The next thing we do is inspect. So I in the RIST procedure, it's not wrist like your wrist, right? There's no W, so it's like not the true spelling of the word, but we call it wrist. We inspect. So once the debris is gone, we have a look. Are there cracks? Are there threads missing on the studs? Is there damage that's visible to the naked eye? And of course, if there is, we immediately stop and we make the proper recommendations or repairs if possible. The third item in that wrist is called snug. So we snug in a star pattern. So the S kind of has two meanings there, right? Snug, star.
Snug star.
Yeah. So you crisscross as you're tightening that wheel against the hub. You can imagine there's some weight to it, right? So that wheel and tire assembly is often 100 pounds, let's say, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to tighten the top 12 o'clock position and then just go 1, 2, 3, you can imagine that maybe not fitting on the hub squarely, equally at all points around that circle.
Mm-hmm.
So then the idea is you snug it in a star pattern. So you snug
Okay.
the 12 o'clock, then you go 6, then you go 9, and then you go 3, and so on and so forth. All 10 positions or 8, however many lug nuts there is. So that's snugged and squared onto the wheel correctly. And then the last thing we do is we torque the lug nuts to specification. So all the lug nuts have a specification. We have a torque wrench, which is like a big ratchet wrench essentially that clicks or has an indicator of when you've got the right tightness or torque. And then if we follow all those components of that procedure, that's the best way to prevent any kind of wheel off happening. So from a tire technician's perspective, Doug, I hope that kind of answers kind of what you're getting at, but that's what we do. And that's shown as an industry standard as the best procedure. If you miss that step, or any of those steps, that's where that blind spot is, and that's where the potential hazard happens. So, and then not really part of the risk procedure, but we always recommend to have those nuts checked. Okay. So if we've serviced a unit and we've worked on a wheel position, we usually give that driver a reminder. Most major fleets will have that as policy.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll operate for a certain amount of kilometers, they'll come back or send someone to that unit and check the torque again with the torque wrench.
It's really no different when you switch over to, say, your winter tires. They say, come back, get this torqued, retorqued.
It's a common thing.
Yeah.
There's different ways that gets delivered within the industry, and it's changed. Like in my tenure with Kal Tire, which is like 20 plus years, there's some nuance and some difference as how it's moved along. But as far as the medium commercial truck business goes, yeah, always come back. And really what we're doing when it comes back is we're checking our own work. Mm-hmm. We're ensuring, okay, if there's a problem and one of those nuts has come loose in that time period, we can identify that problem there. Mm-hmm. It's very rare that happens, but on occasion, and then you catch something, and then invariably we go back through what we've done and say, okay, you know what, our person potentially didn't follow the procedure that they were trained to do. So yeah. So I mean, it's kind of a long answer to Doug's question, but it's an important thing, because we're all aware of the consequences. It's not a small thing when a wheel comes off, and we said it's 100 pounds. It's going at 100 kilometers an hour. Yeah. At times, it's a serious thing, and we don't want to deal with it ever. So we do everything we can to prevent it.
Awesome.
So with the, I guess rewinding back to the torquing procedure, and we've seen it out in the field where the tire techs are using impacts. There's potential to, I think, overstretch those studs, with overdoing it with the torque or the impact. What kind of procedure are your techs following to make sure that, they're not really hammering on, those nuts with the torque and over torquing them and stretching those studs?
Totally fair question. So the S in the wrist stands for snug in a star pattern. So I think the word is used strategically, that it's to pick up the slack in that nut against the wheel. It's not to tighten it to spec or anything like that. So I mean, maybe a lot of your viewers have used an impact gun or something like that. An impact wrench is necessary for what we do, but the idea is you're snugging that nut to the wheel. everything gets snugged. It's not being tightened. So you kind of don't want to, you hear people, you hear that noise, bang, 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 bang.
Yep.
If they're standing on it and it's banging and banging and banging and banging, yeah, Doug's right. That's over torqued.
Yeah.
That's not the design of it. But we have that word snug in mind. We also dial our torque wrenches or our guns down so that they max out to a maximum torque and they're not able to over torque mechanically. And just, like as much as we try to train that common sense, we certainly want to make sure that when we're torquing, which is the T component of that wrist, that the last action of that torque wrench is the nut actually turning. So when you apply the torque wrench, and you could imagine this, Doug, you're tightening that lug nut, maybe that last half or quarter turn. It's turning, so you haven't over torqued it, and then the wrench clicks, indicates, okay, that's the torque or tightness that we want. So you haven't over torqued it. So that's the kind of thing. We snug it, and then the last turn or quarter turn of that nut needs to be applied with a torque wrench by hand, not with a mechanical gun. And
that's not an easy feat. That's 450 pounds of, you got to really lean on a torque wrench to get that thing snugged up.
Yeah. Often you'll see our team members, there'll be two guys. There'll be one guy at the hub who's fitting the socket on the nut, and there'll be another guy at the end of the wrench because the wrench itself is heavy, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to manage, and it's 2 feet, 3 feet long sometimes, to just multiply that torque. And so yeah, sometimes it's a two-man job to do the torquing. So
I say you never want to anger a tire tech because of the strength that those guys have.
Yeah, you can see I haven't done much teching on tires as of late, but I do have a little bit of experience years ago. Yeah.
Right on. But you mentioned like the retorque process, and we've come up against this a lot in the industry. The drivers, they're leaving after hours, so they show up, they do their pre-trip, and they find that that tag flapping in the wind off the trailer or the truck, and they know that there's a certain amount of kilometers that they shouldn't exceed before getting that retorque, but it's after hours and the shops are closed. So what do you suggest there? And like, is it a max amount of kilometers that driver can drive, or is there something that driver can be keeping an eye on through his his routine tire checks on the road to make sure that nothing's coming loose? Like, what kind of visual signs should the drivers be checking if they have to go beyond that recommended retorque kilometer?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I think part of the driver inspection, and this is kind of to the fringe of my expertise, but the pre-trip includes at least visually inspecting the lug nuts. And does it include actually handling them, like taking your hand and checking the nut?
Yeah, we always ask the drivers to do a hand check on, make sure like the nut itself or the washer in behind isn't turning, right?
Yes. So that would be the number one thing, right? It would be hard to imagine a potential wheel off situation where the driver had handled all 10 of those lug nuts on that hub in his pre-trip and ignored it, right? Like, so that would be the main thing. But overall, I guess my thought and my explanation to customers is always, it's a relatively small inconvenience. It gets big. I understand that, and it's middle of the night, and you've gone your 50 or 100 or 150 kilometers, and then you've got to do a retorque. But it's a small inconvenience to prevent a very large inconvenience.
Yeah.
Potential fatal inconvenience. So when you weigh it that way, I think, customers and drivers hopefully would understand that it's very important to do that. And it's important to know, and have a good relationship with your technician, whether that's, an in-house tire tech or, someone like at Kal Tire or whatever, like understand that, hey, like I want to invest in this maintenance in a way that I can trust that it's good.
Investing in safety.
Yeah, for sure.
Like those wheel indicators, Jeff, do you suggest like all carriers be using those as a visual to make sure things aren't coming loose, or what's your opinion on those?
I mean, it's one of those things, and we deal with them in the industry for sure. And some customers implement that policy, and then they'll have a policy where they want the wheel indicators installed. I don't think there's any real shortcut or substitution for, proper installation, proper torque when that wheel is fitted on, checking the torque, and then doing your pre-trip by hand. Some of the comments I've heard in the past on the wheel indicators or the torque indicators is, well, then that gives the driver an excuse to kind of skip a step, and we don't really condone that. I think still the best thing to do is, hey, it's going to take you 5 minutes, handle each one of those lug nuts on your pre-trip kind of thing. I mean, you can go both ways, right? There's an argument for them, and there'd be an argument against them, Doug. So we're kind of at Kal Tire, we don't really take a policy on those items. We deal with them all the time, and that's fine. But yeah, we don't really take a stand one way or the other.
So Jeff, I appreciate all that information on the wheel offs and the processes that you guys are have in place to prevent, and we'll move a little bit to like the yard work, like the safety of your techs when they're operating in the yards. Like, what kind of equipment are you using? Tire cages? Like, are you cordoning off the areas to make sure your tire techs are safe? Like, or even on the side of the road, how are you guys addressing, keeping your staff safe when they're working on the equipment?
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's a dangerous thing, like a tire. We talked about how that tire assembly is 100 plus pounds, and it has 100 plus PSI in the tire itself at times. So yeah, our technicians are trained. There's I would say, rigorous training course that they go through. They need to be signed off at multiple points before they're dispatched. And certainly before they're dispatched alone, but that is a reality. A lot of our technicians will operate alone, and then there's procedures for us. They have to check in and so on and so forth. So all those things are in place kind of as an overarching safety thing, but specifically, yeah, we absolutely, when we're inflating a medium truck tire and wheel assembly, it's restrained. So it's in a cage. It's in an appropriate restraint system. A tire, when it blows, and it happens, we talked about it.
Yep.
There's the force of that pressure inside will almost always blow out the sidewalls.
Okay. So
if you can imagine a tire sitting here, there's the tread surface that touches the road, and then there's the sidewalls that you see that has, the Michelin or the Bridgestone or whatever on the side, right? The trajectory zone of the force of the air pressure comes out the side. So that's how if you've seen a tire cage, it encompasses the entire tire. But then as we're inflating it, our policy is you're never in the trajectory zone. Mm-hmm. So what we have is a inflation extension.
Oh, okay.
So we fit it on the valve stem.
Yep.
Can't do that without being in the trajectory zone. But of course, you're there without it being inflated. Mm-hmm. We step out of that trajectory zone, and then we can remotely inflate it. It's called a remote inflator. And then we can monitor the air pressure with that as it's being inflated. And of course, the whole assembly is in a cage.
Yeah.
So even if it does fail, the cage is there, but our technician, and he'll advise the driver or whoever else is present to be out of that trajectory zone. Mm-hmm. It's very important because the force of that air coming out if the tire were to fail is very significant and causes some damage.
It's interesting just to talk of the innovation of how things go. We actually have the episode that we'll play previously to this one is about the future of industry and just how technology like that inflator, it makes it safer for the techs because they're out of that zone. And just a small thing really that back in the day they wouldn't have had access to.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's nearly impossible to be a tire technician and never enter that trajectory zone, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, once that tire is inflated, the odds of it failing at pressure when it's been inspected, which is something that we do as well, especially if it's a used tire or a used casing or any kind of thing. It gets an inspection before we're inflating it. But yeah, that's a real risk, and we deal with it every day. And I've been on the property when a tire blows, and it's not fun. And it's something that we never want to deal with, but we have to be prepared for, and we have to take every step to prevent it.
Sure.
So a driver walks up and he hits the tire, and it gives it that thud, that that low pressure feeling in the tire when they hit it with a hammer. I've heard there's a number. I think it's about 80 psi or lower. If you find a tire that's below that, it's considered flat. You should never inflate it, from what I've been told in the past. Can you elaborate on that and why?
Yeah, and the reason is, we know, and we talked about it, that heat is the enemy of tires. Yeah. So when you're operating a tire, and I think that industry standard, Doug, and it's a fair guess, but I think it's 80% of operating pressure, and 100 psi is a very common operating pressure. So 80 psi kind of goes with that, right? So 80% of operating pressure, if it's below 80%, at least our policy is, if we suspect it's been operated at below 80%, we won't inflate it without dismounting the entire assembly and inspecting the tire. Doesn't mean the tire's no good. It just means that the tire's at a much, much, much higher risk of failing.
It's an element of safety.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, and it's more passenger light truck application where the rule is the same, right? Yeah. So if you have a 35 psi tire on your SUV and you see it go flat, well, what do we all do? We just add air. Typically,
guilty,
right? And typically we're not using a remote inflator.
Yep.
But that tire is very, very similar structure to a medium truck tire. And if it's gonna blow, it's gonna blow out the side, and it's gonna potentially hurt you. So you shouldn't do that. And that's where oftentimes we'll have those conversations with customers. Well, somebody will come in with their SUV tire, and it's clear it's been operated at below that 80%.
Yeah.
At that point, it needs to come off the rim, be fully inspected before we add air. And I mean, sometimes it's an inconvenience.
Yes. But
generally, when you explain the risks to that driver, they'll be like, "Oh, of course, I don't want my tire hurting someone, right?" Yeah. So you take the high road and you do it the safe way. But yeah, like it's a real thing. So if you suspect, even in your own personal vehicle, if the tire's been operated below that 80%, it's at a much, much higher risk for failing, because we know when a tire is run at a low pressure, there's more heat involved, and that sidewall will degrade. And it's the sidewall that degrades.
That is
the weakest component of the tire, the part where all that air pressure is going to fly out if it does fail. So, so it is a thing. We talk about it, that 80% mark, but yeah, it's just it's a smaller inconvenience to prevent a large one. You don't want that thing to blow under any condition, especially when the driver or somebody is there adding air to it. So,
Geoff, I want to thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and insight today. We're going to wrap up with some parting thoughts. So is there anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, I think it's great that the subject matter, like it's safety, right? Like, yes. Really what we're here to talk about is, keeping each other safe. We all left families when we came here this morning, and we all have a responsibility, I think, in every walk of life. When I walked in here, I had to, mind some of the cords that are on the floor, and that's a thing within this profession that you got to be aware of. And for us, it's different, but it's tires and it's failure and all those things that we can do to prevent them is an advantage. What I didn't mention is, like, failure on the roadside is an extremely expensive thing for our customers.
Yeah.
It's high risk, but it costs a lot of money to get dealt with. And it's expensive for us too, to outfit a service truck and pay someone and train them and get them out there. And we don't want that either. We want our customers to be able to prevent those unsafe things from happening.
Absolutely. So, safety first.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Doug, any other questions for Geoff or anything you would like to add?
No more questions. And Geoff, again, thanks so much for your sharing your valuable insights with us. And really, it's there's on average 18 tires on a rig, right? So there's lots of potential for failure. I think it's just important that drivers and techs are checking those tread depths, having a look at the equipment, hands-on checking and doing those pre-trips. That I think is key, and we talked a little bit about that and the importance, definitely of the retorque program. To Geoff's point earlier, those tires, that hub, everything together weighs so much, and when it comes loose and flies into traffic, if anyone's not seen that, go to YouTube. You can find them. Zippering of tires and that, the blowing out of the sidewalls, how violent that is. So just be safe about it. Check your equipment, and I think that's going to really help prevent this. So
great. Thanks again to you both, and have a safe day.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Thank you.
Now we're going to throw to Doug Walton, who conducted a live on location interview with the crew at Answer Trailer. We'll let Doug take it away from here.
Thanks, Kelsey. Really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this podcast, but we're actually changing things up a little bit. Instead of being in studio, we're here in Spruce Grove, Alberta at Answer Trailer, one of our valued supplier members. We're here to talk about wheel-off prevention. Now, wheel-off is just what it sounds. It's when a vehicle loses a wheel or a set of wheels and they enter off into traffic and can be a catastrophic event. Now, picture with a commercial vehicle, 400 to 500 pounds of rubber and metal coming loose, detaching, and flying in at an unstoppable force to your vehicle. It can be catastrophic in terms of damage, injury, or even death. So we're here at Answer Trailer today to learn from the experts on what they're doing to prevent those kind of catastrophic events from happening. They have their own fleet here. They're going to share with us their best practices and in hopes to raise awareness on how to do things right. So we're going to head inside, talk to the experts, and we'll see what they have to show us. I'm here with our guest, Shawn Rushton, Fleet and Repair Manager here at Answer Trailer. Shawn, it's great to have you here on the podcast, and I really appreciate the opportunity to visit your facility, just learn firsthand the procedures that you and your folks here at the shop do to really reduce the risks of wheel-offs. Not just, I think, within your rental fleet, but the customers that you service as well. So before we deep dive into this important topic, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I've been in the industry for 35 years. I came from Nova Scotia in 1990 and had to find work, so I went to work at Truck All Depot, and the rest is history. I went to work for Lionsgate in 1993 and stayed there for almost 30 years until I moved out here in 2021.
Well, for our listeners, I've had the privilege of working with this guy for many years, not just with the companies that I've worked and rented from Shawn, but we also work together as colleagues. And many people like me see you as the expert when it comes to trailer mechanics, and I think I still call you today for questions that I have. So I really always appreciate you picking up the phone. I've been out of the trailer world for a few years now, Shawn, but I'm curious, are you still encountering trailers that have lost wheels?
Quite often. At least they come loose. Yeah, quite often. Usually wheel nut failure.
Yikes. So you talk about wheel nut failure, but what are other contributing factors that can cause a wheel to come loose?
When people don't stop to have a retorque done, I would say is the most common one.
Yeah. We had our previous episode. We were talking with Kal Tire, and they talked about the wheel, retorque program and the things that they do. So obviously, you believe in that process as well as a double check.
Yeah, 100%.
Right on. So when we get into wheel end procedures, what is a wheel end procedure? I remember you and I working on it with a number of experts back at our previous employer to develop strict guidelines. So walk us through what is Answer Trailer's wheel end procedure?
Well, for setting the bearing, we use manufacturer specification to set the torque on the bearings. And we use wheel savers, obviously, between the drum and the wheels, and the proper installation of the wheel itself, the star pattern.
Well, I think we're going to head out to the shop and you're going to show us all that, which is going to be great to get the visual of that. And so how important is it for a mechanic or even a tire tech that's out in the field to follow those proper, procedures? We hear things like over torquing and stretching of studs, those kind of things. What can happen when your tech doesn't follow those procedures?
The worst case scenario, death on the highways.
Yeah, pretty straightforward, right?
Pretty straightforward.
So when you're I guess putting a torque wrench or you're putting the wheels on with a big impact, are you hammering those nuts on and over tightening, or what's the procedure there? Like how do you, I guess, prevent that from happening?
Well, we'll use a 1/2 inch impact or a 3/4 turn back a little bit, as long as you come in around 450 foot-pounds and do a rolling torque when you put your torque wrench on there to bring it to 500.
Kind of make sure that we're not overstretching.
Not over torquing.
Because that is a big issue in the industry.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What about rims, like rusty surfaces and all that stuff? Does that impact the ability to torque a wheel on? Or
It does. All mating surfaces, whether it be the hub itself, the drum, and the wheels. And the nuts, always, the flanges on your unimount nut always have to be, we put 2 drops of oil on them and make sure they're free.
And you buff off all the surfaces.
Every surface is buffed.
Yeah. I think that is probably one of the most important, because you think about it, you're trying to torque a wheel together, and if there's rust and dirt and behind that, eventually that disappears with rubbing, and then all of a sudden your wheels, it's not as up to spec as it should be. Right?
Yep. And it can also, with dirty surfaces, it can also not seat proper and can be crooked, and it'll cause a hard spot on the drum where the drum will get hot and all this. Yeah, many things.
So what, I guess, before we go out in the shop, what tools, and you'll probably walk us through the tools when we get out there, but what tools are used in the industry to ensure things are done properly when you talk wheel end procedures?
Die grinders, the torque wrench has to be calibrated at least every 6 months, twice a year. Just to make sure everything's in proper working condition to make sure you're achieving that 500 foot-pounds.
Yeah, right on. Now, torque brakes, I know you and I used to use those, those yellow sticks with the torque brakes and make sure you don't over torque it. Is that something you're still using? Or?
I don't really use them today. Back in the 90s it was a thing.
Okay. So more just by hand.
By hand.
Yeah.
Do it proper.
Right on. Good for you. We know maintenance is important for any piece of equipment, but what maintenance is required, in a wheel end that, that shouldn't go overlooked? Like, we have PM services and all those things, but when you're looking at a wheel end, what kind of maintenance is important to be doing?
Make sure your hub oils are up to the full line, and the wheels, here we change, if a wheel seal starts to seep, we consider it gone because it could blow down the road, right? And along with that, it could heat up the bearings. Bearing failure causes the wheel to come off also.
So the hub oil is really, that's the lubricating agent that's keeping everything cool at highway speeds.
Highway speeds.
If it's not there, things start to get red hot,
Yep.
peel off, and that's what you're saying, it'll
Yep.
come off.
And here we prefer the 007 semi-fluid grease. It's really good. It's a little bit of a saving grace.
Is it? Does it stay cooler, or
Stays cooler. It's just
more fluid?
Yep.
Yeah, right on. Okay. Well, I want to thank you for sharing your insights with us and the listeners today. I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you be open to taking us out into the shop and showing us some things?
Yep, we can go have a look at a few things.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's head out there and we'll check what you got set up for us.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, we're here in the shop at AMTA Trailer with my good friend Shawn. We're going to walk through talking about a wheel end procedure. Shawn's going to point out some of the tools that he's using and some of the things to look out for to make sure that we're preventing any wheel off situations from happening. So, Shawn, take it away. I got my steel toes and vest on, so I'm good to go.
You should be good.
All right.
Where's your helmet?
Oh, I don't have a helmet.
One of the most important things for these wheel ends is to put a locking device on there to keep them from coming off.
And that's for the hub?
For the hub, yeah.
Yeah.
One example is the Pro Nut, one of my favorites. Another way you can achieve that, obviously there's the inner nut and the washer that goes on it, locks on the little stub, and then I like to call it a throwing star, but you put that on there, and when you clamp the outer nut down, you flip one or two of them over and it stops the nut from spinning loose.
So Shawn, if we took this off, that's going to be where that nut assembly holds this whole hub on,
Yep.
right? Is that what you're
all
saying?
in behind there.
Okay, all right, got it. All right, what's next?
Well, I suppose we can start with clean and maintenance surfaces.
Okay.
One important thing I learned way back in 1990 was when you're putting aluminum outer rims on and an inner steel rim, and you don't put a wheel saver in there, it'll crack the steel rim in about 1,000 kilometers. It happened to me.
Oh, is that? Well, aluminum and steel don't play nice together.
No, they don't.
So you need to have the spacer.
Always have the spacer in there.
Good point. Good point.
One other thing, well, manufacturer specification on the torque of those bearings is very important. So refer to Google. I do.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
So there's oil in this hub, obviously, and this is your sight glass. So as a driver, this is one thing I want to be checking to make sure that I can see an oil level if there's a sight glass there, correct?
Yep.
If not, I'm making sure that there's no leaks.
No leaks.
In the seals. And the seals are obviously right in behind here and then
in back there.
Back there. Okay, got it. So if there's oil seeping around my rim, or if there's anything that looks like oil residue, I should be getting that checked out.
Or if this is low, you can't see it in the sight glass. There's two things that can cause that. It's leaking oil out the back, or it's grease.
Got it.
Because you can't see the grease, right?
Obviously, yeah. Right on. Okay, what's next?
Well, I suppose we can discuss cleaning up the mating surfaces to make sure the drum is sitting on the hub square and clean with no dirt in behind.
Well, I think you're almost retired, so we should probably call Ed in here to give us a hand.
We'll call
All right.
an associate over.
Okay, so we brought in Ed. Ed's one of the techs here for Answer Trailer, and he's going to walk us through what his normal procedure is for putting on a rim.
Okay, so normally we would just clean the studs prior to putting the drum on so you can get the whole stud.
Wow, so that takes all that rust and debris and anything that cleans it all out. So it's going to provide. We talked earlier about that proper torque that is going to.
All the clamping force.
The clamping force, yeah, okay.
Cleaning the studs like that also helps you identify sometimes if a thread comes off or something, and they're nice and shiny like that, you can see if it's hourglassed or it's just good for stud inspection.
Got it. How much does that drum weigh, Ed? Probably
110 pounds.
Wow, 110 pounds. So when we talked about it earlier, when you factor in the weight of that drum, rims and tires,
Oh, you're 500 pounds.
500 pounds of centrifugal force heading at you. Yeah. Anyway, carry on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll throw a wheel spacer on.
Got it.
Right.
Rims are nice and clean, as you can see.
One thing you gotta watch is you gotta make sure it's all nice and clean on the inside. We'll take a Scotch-Brite pad and just give her a nice clean.
Give it a nice clean. We won't need to make you do that today, but I get it.
No, they're all nice and clean, all right?
Yeah.
I'll swing my bar from here. Okay, so just want to make sure they're sitting properly on the hub itself.
Okay.
A lot of guys will leave them kinked and then try and run them on with the studs. You stretch studs. You
Stretch
put stuff
studs.
that way.
Yeah. Got it. Another spacer.
Throw another spacer on because
And that's-
aluminum don't like steel.
That's
Yes,
right.
ferrous versus non-ferrous, right?
Yeah.
Another thing to watch for is our valve stems are going to offset them 180.
Okay.
Right?
What's the reason for that?
Balancing.
Balancing. Okay.
Well, because trailer tires aren't balanced.
Right.
So we try to do the best we can to keep everything where it should be.
Yeah.
Oh, then the one thing we do here
One thing.
is put 2 drops of oil on the flange. I give it a little spin.
And what's the point to that, Shawn?
Well, to keep that flange up, but to do a retorque on the wheel when it's dry, it's really hard for them. You know, say you set your torque wrench and they're a little, they break free harder, right? But with a little lubrication, you can go in there and the torque wrench will work freely.
Give it a better torque.
To ensure you're at 500 foot-pounds.
Nice.
So they also teach us to put one drop on the end of the stud as well for the clamping force, right?
Got it.
You should go this fast every day.
I do this fast every day.
How long you been working on trailers now, Ed?
Oh gosh, almost 20 years.
20 years. Wow. Okay, so we're about to go through the torque procedure on the rim that Ed just mounted, but Shawn brought up a good point through our discussions. As a driver, what do I want to be looking out for when I'm doing my roadside inspections and my tire checks and wheel checks? Shawn, take it away.
Okay, well on the aluminum rim, tattletale sign of them starting to come loose or dirt getting in between, you'll see like a gray line come down from the wheel nuts and studs. On a steel rim, it's a bright orange or rusty color, and you'll see it out of all 10 as a rule. That's a sign you should take that apart and clean your mating surfaces and
do a retorque again.
And do a retorque again and just make sure.
So that's obviously, you know, water or something getting in behind, things
water,
are loose.
Rust built up in behind. Yeah.
Okay, so it's an indication that
something's going to happen, yeah.
Now, we teach through a pre-trip inspection that we are touching every hand or every nut with our hands to make sure that they're tight, and we know all the nuts are on there, but that washer, that's really what we're looking for. If we're doing our hand checks and that washer's loose, obviously we shouldn't be able to turn it. So.
Yep. And those flanges are super important, that they're not seized, not damaged in any way.
Thanks, Shawn. Okay, Ed, show us the torque sequence that you go through here.
So we're just going to start at the top, work our way down, and then just keep kind of like a star pattern, right?
Star pattern.
Just going to keep jumping around a little bit.
Okay. So that's just snug, right?
That's just snug, just to get everything seated nice and tight.
Okay.
So then we'll drop it down, and we'll grab a torque wrench, and we'll torque to 550.
Right. I'll just add one thing to this. So if you're going to do your torque on here, and that nut doesn't roll at all, it's beyond 500, and you don't know what your torque spec is, which is stretchy studs, more of a problem, right?
So you have to take it back off again, inspect, and then got it. Okay. All right.
You always want that nut to move.
Nice. Okay. Okay, we're gonna torque this up, but Shawn, you had some pointers you wanted to give.
When we do the torque on the wheel end, we always do it with the brakes released. Just get the proper retorque.
Everything sucks in the drum, so the drum's not being held by the brakes.
Not being held by the
You're
brakes.
going to get proper clamping force.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
And the trailer's on the ground now?
Yep.
Got it.
And we have rolling.
So I can see that the nut is rolling, and then it's going to torque. So you didn't over-tighten it.
No,
there.
as soon as it snaps, you're done. A half-inch gun won't over-torque them.
Right. Nice.
It's when you see the guys use the 1 inch or whatnot to run them down, right?
Perfect. Okay, Shawn, Ed's torqued this wheel up 100%. We're feeling pretty confident. What's next?
What's next? One of the important things is to make sure there's a retorque tag on it. So we're going to just write it up for the right rear wheel, and we'll hang it on the front.
You mark the position, and then you hang it off the front of the trailer.
Hang it off the glad hand, yep.
The driver comes to do the pre-trip, he sees that tag, he knows that he's got to get a retorque done.
Get a retorque within 100 to 150 kilometers.
Got it.
Other than that,
we got her done.
that's about it.
Well, Shawn, I can't thank you enough, my friend, you and Answer Trailer for having us out here and walking us through, and Ed for his help as well. And we really appreciate your support and being a supplier member of the AMTA. So thanks again, Shawn.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
And to wrap our episode, we'll go to our chat with Evan Schielke of STEMCO. Evan, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
To start, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself and the work that you do with STEMCO?
Sure. Well, I'm the regional sales manager for STEMCO Alberta and Northern BC. I also look after the Yukon and Northwest Territories. I've been with STEMCO now for 1 year, and before that, I've been in the industry total for about 20 years. So I've worked with many distributors in my time, and now I'm just lucky enough to be able to work directly for STEMCO.
Awesome. And speaking of STEMCO, can you tell me a bit about the work that the company does, and then specifically about your wheel end products and that technology?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been around for 75 years. So we were founded in 1951. And what we do is we have a rich history of engineering and manufacturing products specifically for the commercial vehicle industry. Uh, so we deal with a wide range of heavy duty applications, anywhere from highway truck and trailer to bus and coach, all the way to fire and rescue. So we're focused on wheel end products, so seals, bearings, axle fasteners, and steering applications, so kingpins and tie rods.
So, Evan, as you know, you're part of a broader podcast that we're doing about wheel offs. Can you tell me what it is about your wheel end product that makes both equipment and our roads safer?
Yeah, so the one thing I really wanted to focus on today was our new Auto Torque axle fastener. What the Auto Torque does is it takes everything a preset hub does without the preset hub components. So we're able to get the perfect preload onto the hub without all the components that go into a preset hub. But the biggest thing is we've taken out human error. So there's no torque procedure, there's no special tools needed. Basically, technicians can turn this thing, spin it on, let it ratchet up, and it's done.
With mechanics being surprised at how this works, can you kind of delve more into how it does make the wheel safer?
Sure. So with a typical axle fastener, what technicians are looking for is about 1 to 5 thousandths of an inch end play when everything is all said and done. I've done a lot of wheel end clinics, and it is shocking how few technicians actually use a dial indicator when they are, checking all their specs. A lot of them just go by feel. And that's a big thing, is technicians have learned from somebody who's learned from somebody who's learned from somebody, right? So this is all passed down knowledge. So they're learning, definitely some proper ways, but they're also learning some bad habits. So this is why I like to get out and stress the importance of using the proper tools, and the dial indicator being one of them. So with a typical axle fastener, you're looking for between 1 and 5 thousandths of an inch. That's not a lot. So, when people say they can feel it, I just don't think they can. If it's too tight, what can happen is the bearings can overheat and you can have some catastrophic failure. Or if it's too loose, things can come apart and then you have a wheels off instance. One of our products, and there are some other products out there, use keepers or lock tabs or something like that. If those aren't set in properly, those nuts, when everything is said and done, they're hand tight. So if those keepers come off or fail or they weren't replaced, that sort of thing, it's very simple. I always tell technicians, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when the nut is going to come off, and then you have a wheels off. So with the Auto Torque, it eliminates that. It locks into itself. There's no way for it to possibly back off. It has an internal wave washer that basically sets that preload on there. So now, instead of having between 1 and 5 thousandths of an inch end play, now we're at 0. So now we have the proper preload on those bearings. There's no way for it to back off, and there's no torque procedure. So technicians really can't mess it up. There's no back off and tighten again.
And I mean, speaking to that, you spoke to the fact that when you're either doing clinics or showing people, that mechanics are kind of surprised at how quick and easy this might be.
Yeah, actually, the biggest complaint I get is that it's too easy. Technicians are used to jumping on a torque wrench, torquing anywhere from 200 foot-pounds to 500 foot-pounds, which, there's a lot that goes into that physically, but then there's also the back off procedure, torquing it back up again. There's none of that with this. It spins on so nice and easy. I tell people they can use a breaker bar up to a 3/4 inch ratchet, and yeah, they're able to put that on. Their biggest complaint is we don't feel like we're doing it right because it's too easy.
And speaking of, it's my understanding that in your travels you do clinics just to teach companies more about this product.
Yeah, and it's not just this product, it's all of our products. STEMCO is very focused on safety. So I like to get out to distributors, fleets, anywhere I can, anybody who is using STEMCO products, and teach them what we do, the manufacturer's spec, how to properly install the wheel ends. And we also go with TMC, so the Technology Maintenance Council specs.
And I mean, clearly people are paying attention to this technology because STEMCO recently won what's called a PACE Award. It's an annual award from the Automotive News. So congrats to Evan and STEMCO. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so that happened in April. It's the first time STEMCO has ever even entered that category, but the category was for drivetrain and suspension. So, yeah, it's a huge prestigious award. It's a big deal for us.
Amazing. Thank you. And for our listeners, we are going to have a bunch of links that Evan was kind enough to provide about the product, about the PACE Award, about all of those things. What Evan's been talking about. Doug, can you come at it from a commercial driver perspective and kind of your experience with Wheels Off and how a product like this can make things safer?
For sure, there's so many factors to wheel offs, and we know that the hub and everything from the way wheels are torqued and the nuts and the rims and the surfaces, all that. There's so many things that come together to make sure that a wheel stays on. So from a driver's perspective, when you're pre-tripping, other than checking hub oil, you really can't ensure from a driver's perspective if that hub is torqued properly or not. We're hand checking nuts for to make sure that the washers aren't loose or the nuts aren't loose. There's no streaking on the hubs to indicate that there's rusting in behind. Those are the kind of the visuals that a driver can be looking at, but really to understand the internals, whether those bearings that Evan was talking about are torqued properly to spec, that's really out of the driver's control. So, if that wheel end is over tightened and the driver's just driving down the road, he'll never feel a problem until it's already happened. So those bearings could, like Evan said, seize up, overheat, cause the wheel to fail, or it comes loose. And unfortunately for the driver, they don't realize that it even happened until they go to do their next stop and they go to do a circle check and go, oh my goodness, where's my wheels, right? We always hope that, when those catastrophic events happen, that those wheels do end up in the trees somewhere and not in someone's lap, through their vehicle, right? So I really applaud this technology. Working in the industry, especially in the trailer world, understanding there's so many miles that go on these trailer wheels, and they're not like a tractor. They're not always in the shops getting their wet and dry services and always checked. They're kind of that piece of that asset that sits in the back, and okay, yeah, it's the annual CVIP time, we got to do an inspection. They're not always, I guess, looked at as closely as they should. So to have this technology in place and available to the manufacturers or the shops to utilize, it really just adds that extra bit of safety for the road, for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Doug. And Evan, we really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today. Is there anything you'd like to add as a parting thought?
Yeah. I was, STEMCO, I said it earlier, we really pride ourselves on safety, and I try and get out to as many fleets and distributors as I can to do the wheel end clinics. But that being said, if we can't get to a location, in a timely manner, let's say, we do have other options as well. We have an app online that it's STEMCO Live. So anybody can download that app. Basically, it's interactive. You just kind of it'll ask you for a picture of your surroundings, and then you can actually do the lessons right on that STEMCO Live app. And we also have our STEMCO University on our website, which is a fantastic tool as well. People can learn a lot of different things that they may have known and forgot about, or may have never known.
Awesome. And Evan, again, thank you so much for your knowledge and time. We're going to make sure for the folks that are listening that we have Evan's contact information in the show notes as well.
Fantastic.
Once again, I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and for their time and footage in making this episode a success. Special thanks to Doug Walton for conducting our on-site filming and interviews, and our producer Robin Betts for polishing everything into a final episode. If you're able, we encourage you to check out this episode on YouTube to see all of that aforementioned footage. Do you have any questions or comments about the Steering Change episodes, or this one in particular? Please reach out on our Instagram at AMTA_CA or LinkedIn and Facebook at Alberta Motor Transport Association. Stay safe and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of AMTA's Steering Change Podcast. The views expressed by guests of the Steering Change Podcast are their own and may not reflect the views of AMTA, its hosts, or sponsors. Did you have a question that you would like answered on an upcoming episode of the Steering Change Podcast? We want to hear from you. To submit a question to the Steering Change mailbag, hit up our DMs on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram with the hashtag SteeringChange, and your question will be answered either live on the podcast or by one of our SMEs here at AMTA. We ask that you share this episode with those in your network that could benefit from what we discussed today, and make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform so you can be notified when future episodes are released. You can learn more about us and our mission by visiting www.amta.ca. Now get out there and have a safe day.